Looking at the consent agenda, any questions on minutes? Bills? Gina, was there any, did you do bills?
Yep, I did. All was good.
Resignations.
Make sure you look at the amended one that was in your folder.
Any questions on resignations?
If you're gonna pull number 2 under recommendations, you have to pull number 3 under resignations.
Pull both of them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're gonna pull number 3 of resignations. Or table it. Any field trips?
No.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with item number 3 pulled off resignations. Or table, she says.
Second.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Public forum? Anything for public forum?
Just the shout-outs.
Shadows?
Get it big enough so I can read it. Mike and Erie likes to give a shout out to Cassie Ibsen for being an amazing Science PLC partner. She also has done wonderful work in her first year teaching with a brand new curriculum. Cassidy Ibsen wants to give a shout out to Jamie Meyer for being an incredibly amazing mentor for me during my first year of teaching. Robin Schroeder, Jennifer Brinks, and TA staff and CMS gardeners would like to give a huge shout out to Brady Eichheit for sharing the high school's greenhouse with them. Peggy McDonald wants to give a shout out to Dale Smith for coming into her room and others every week and sharing words of wisdom and inspiration before the day even gets started. I believe he is going to be missed over more than anyone realizes. Kayla Strasser gives a big shout out to Hunter Harmony. Thank you for being a tremendous support for both the teaching staff and our students. We really appreciate all you do. We want you to know that it has made a great difference. The students you work with value their time and you, and appreciate that you listen to them and help them find positive ways to manage their frustration. As for myself, I'm grateful to have you help manage the issues that we face daily. Thanks, Hunter. She'd also like to give a shout out to Carrie Ladahoff and Diane Christensen. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for keeping us sane and encouraged. Thank you for organizing, directing, quarreling, cheering, supporting, and time card correcting, and all around pushing us to greatness. You are the heart of our school, and we all know we could not do it without you. You both are amazing. Carroll Middle School staff and students love you. Kathy Cordes wants to give a shout out to Dennis McCartan for all his hard work in putting the high school schedule together and making sure everything is organized and working. The preschool TAs want to send a shout out to Jill Weber for being a great teacher and role model, especially a great person to work for and with at Carroll Community Schools and Preschool. We couldn't pick a better place to be within the district. A special thanks to her for all she does for us, Julie, Melissa, Stacy, and Sarah. Alan Lowe gives a big shout out to Ashley Webkert Fairview, Christy Peters at the middle school, Beth Wink, Becky Bass, and Dennis McCartan at the high school for their time and effort preparing and returning the Iowa assessments in April. Carrie Ladahoff would like to give a shout out to Jerry Raymond. He's always very supportive of staff and always takes time to listen. To Rachel Menken for organizing the Warrior Challenge for 8th graders. To John Jorgensen and Greg Goody. They are always willing to help out with anything after school. Ann Kluwer gives a shout out to Rachel Menken. Rachel recently took a large group of students to Iowa City to participate in the Warrior Challenge. Not only did she take time to organize the trip and all the details with the students and parents, she went above and beyond to make sure any student that could participate that wanted to. It was incredible watching the memories the students made together and seeing them accomplish something they didn't know they could do. Rachel is the kind of teacher who truly cares about our students and pushing them to their best in and out of the classroom. And would also like to give a shout out to Sydney Kronovich. Sydney teaches with all her heart. She truly dedicates herself to making sure her students are the best they can be, whether it be in physical education or in an at-risk program. Her drive rubs off on the kids who want to do and be their best with her. Sydney has a passion for her students who are at a disadvantage. She takes time to get to know her students, their situations, and obstacles they face. Sydney works to use those obstacles as motivation for her students to better rather than an excuse to stay where they are. I admire the energy and the dedication Sydney has in all that she does. I want to give a shout out to the Carroll Community School Board of Education for all the work that they do for the students and staff at CCSD. The board puts in a great deal of time with no pay in order to make CCSD a better place. In addition to the shout out, I want to recognize the board, honoring them for Board Recognition Week with certificates. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thanks, Rob.
Congratulations. Congratulations. And there is crackers and meat and cheese for you. So, whenever your stomach starts growling, help yourself.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure to acknowledge Chelsea Beeson and Craig Rowetter too for all the work that they're doing with the Dectronics to make sure the scoreboard is up and functioning for the first football game. And they put a lot of energy and time into meetings, and I really appreciate that.
I also had one handed to me before the board meeting. Amy Whitmer would like to give a shout out to Bethany Walbaum for all she does for Evan in Miss Hampton's class. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to donations.
A donation this month from the Tiger Booster Club for $10,000 to support Tiger Vision, the Tiger Vision program.
Can I get a motion to approve the donation?
I'll move to approve the donation.
Second.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
What's happening in the classroom? We have the 3rd and 4th grade PE teachers here for us.
You need the computer for anything?
We don't.
Okay.
No. Should we just stay here?
Space.
Is this all right here? In front of you, Sydney put together a little packet. I can tell you just a little bit about the program that we're doing and how we obtained our fit step pedometers. Sydney's going to go a little bit more into the techie part of it. She's the tech expert, and she's the reason that this is going like it's going. We have ordered 36 pedometers. Sue and I visited about this last year. One of my goals is to increase the technology use in the classroom in our phys ed department. And I've done some other things, but this has really helped us get going. And she went to the
Approached me, we had that, we do collect those little box tops, and they had some money, and they said, if you think of something you really need, well, it was really nice to know that it could be worked with, maybe 300 kids could take advantage of it at Adams between the two instructors, and so it, was about less than $1,400 for it, but it was money that I wouldn't have had to be, to fund the program, so I appreciate
So
that.
yeah, we're very thankful for the Parent School Cooperative to allow it. But what it is, it's a very small little pedometer. The kids come into class and they pick them up out of the bags, or whatever you want to call it, and they clip them onto their belt. And they just leave them there for the whole gym time. And then at the end of class, we have a reader that reads into our computer. We've got it set up on our stage, and you open them up, and you set it into the reader and press down, and it takes like a second and a half to load it into the computer. And then it stores the data from that day. It tells them their activity level, how many minutes they were active, not only how they were active, but their activity level as far as number of steps per minute, and then the steps throughout the course of the day and things like that. And some of that information is in your packet. Sydney has copied off. Right now we're just using them with the 3rd and 4th graders. There's a little bit of a logistics problem with them. They stay at the Adams building. We would like to increase the use of them, but it's going to be hard because I have 3rd grade at the end of the day. Sydney has 5th grade at the end of the day. So a long-range goal might be to set up to perhaps get another set of these and take them out to the middle school, and so Sydney can use them with the 5th and 6th graders as well. We see it a little bit more as an upper elementary program versus a lower elementary, simply because of the way they're used and things like that. I'm going to let Sydney kind of go just a few things about the packet very quickly. We're not going to spend a lot of time, but just to give you a brief overview and certainly to thank you for allowing us to come. We are very excited about it. The one thing that we've both noticed is the kids really like it. They're excited about their activity at the end of the day. They want to see how many steps they've taken. It's a inter-class competition among students to stay active. And then we're also piggybacking on that a little bit, and we can total up a class steps, and then we're having class competitions, and we put it up on the board, and they look and they say, you know, we have 40,000 steps, and Miss Bergans has 42,000 steps, so next time we want to try to see if we can beat that and that kind of thing. And certainly it also depends on what activity we're doing in class, you know, and how many steps they're getting. If we're doing something that's a very, very active day, our steps are going to be higher. If we're doing something, you know, like when we did our gymnastics or something like that, we couldn't wear them for that, and the activity and the steps are less for that. So we're kind of in the infant stages of really understanding exactly what they're capable of and what we can use them as a teacher to motivate our kids to try to be more active in class, and then transition that activity from the class level into their daily work life. So
Right.
Cindy will explain a little bit about.
Even with like getting these pedometers, it's helped our kids, like my kids, when they change clothes, they change faster. They race into the gym so that they can get more time. It's also helped with behavior, because I have classes competing with each other. If they have, like you said, if they were close in steps, then they decide, oh, maybe we should stop talking. And then, so we can get moving, because the more time they waste, the less time they have to get steps. The first page, it just talks about what the pedometer is, what it does. And then I attached a very active student. Just like you said, we're in the infant stages of it. So I wanted to compare what a really active student, so the kid that changes the fastest, constantly is moving, never wants to slow down. This is the dude right here. And it goes from month to month. So with this very active kid, it tells you how many seconds, right, or minutes that they've been active for a certain amount of steps per minute. I know that sounds confusing, but then it totals up the time that they were active. And it's really nice to see too, as an instructor, that if some classes have more activity time than the other, then it's either it was a behavior problem, or maybe I'm taking too much time explaining X, Y, and Z and not giving them a chance to explore it themselves. And then on the second page, and these two students are in the same class, so the first student had over 96,000 steps, or 9,600, excuse me, and then the less active student had barely 6,000. So you can be able to compare a kid that really works really hard to one that kind of like steps back into the background and tries to hide. With these pedometers, Coach and I would like to use those measurements as a part of like their grade, or to show evidence, hey, you know, in March you were slacking off a little bit, but in May we were able to end up here. So we're also trying to figure out too, so like this is the month of March. They have like physical activity report for each month, and we're trying to figure out a more efficient way to print them off, or being able to send them out to parents, or put them in a portfolio to have them logged so we can compare their progress, or if they're declining in steps. So the first physical activity report is February, and then we have it to March and 2, because you can see the days that they're logged. You can compare how many minutes they're active, how many steps that they're ranging. So there's a huge difference from February to March, because might have had a snow day, or might have had an early out. But it's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice to compare from month to month, because then we know what we were teaching at that time too. So how can we make sure that the kids are being more active with the amount of time that we have in gym? And then the last page is just a monthly summary support. You can print off the class roster by the pedometer number that they have, or their student name, but I just did pedometer numbers, and you can compare each time, like each workout, or you can do weekly, or you can do monthly. You can change the report dates on all of those. And then The total at the bottom, on the last page, where it's at over 200,000, those are the steps that we would put on the board. So week by week, if Simulink has 40,000, and then the next week they'll have like 65, then you can always say, hey, we did a really good job of gaining 25,000 steps. So that means that everybody was almost over 1,000. So it's just one way to encourage the kids to keep moving. I mean, they really do like them. One thing is they get kind of nervous, they knock them off sometimes, but they're very durable. So we were able to.
We've noticed that this is a little bit of a pain, so we're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna make some kind of a hanging bag thing that they can just grab them out of the bag and on their way in, and then put it in on the way after they record their data. But like I said, we're kind of in the infant stages, so we're still learning a little bit about it ourselves and really how we can apply some of the things that it allows us to do into our classroom. So we're pretty excited about it. I appreciate Sydney helping me get going with this technology part of it. I've done some other things in class, but she used them in college and she's quite familiar with them. So having that young college kid in our RP department. We've also, in our K-12 PLC, we've introduced them to our high school staff, and they're excited about them as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't approach our administration on how to maybe get some at that level as well, and how to apply it. They already have maybe. So
What's the set cost?
I think Sue said,
Around $13.59. There was free shipping on it, so that saved us a lot of money.
yeah, I thought they were around 1,600, but Sue said
No.
1,400. So
Is there more money in that account that it came out of, Sue?
No, I think it was just like it's separate from you just kept separate. I don't know, they use, this is a fundraiser for K-8, so, or preschool through 8, so. But I don't know whether there is any, they just offered it to me and I just took advantage of it. I don't know, I thought it was a good
Yeah.
cause, a good purpose, so, yeah.
Coach, do you have the link?
questions?
There's a CR video series on the Fit Step Pro for further details. Is there a link for that?
We just got it off like the Fit Step Pro website through Gopher
Just
Sports.
Google it and-
Huh?
Just Google it.
Yeah.
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 It's a real nice little kit that comes with it. It has these are the ports that hook up to our computers, and we have 2 of them, so they can do 2 at a time. And we just form 2 lines, and it takes, like I said, I think it's 1 second or 1.5 seconds. It just uploads them very fast, and we can do 2 at a time, so it doesn't take very long at the end of class. The older kids are a little bit better at it than the younger. I've noticed with the 3rd graders, I still have some that aren't. It's got to fit in there just right and stuff. So you still have to assist in some of it. But we have that, and they send extra batteries and things like that. They are batteries. They're not rechargeable. They run off of one of those flat batteries, whatever they are. But they send an extra set of those. I don't know how long they'll last, but those are things we'll learn.
Yeah.
So, any questions?
Really neat.
Thanks for giving us the time to share that with you.
How long have you been, Keith, how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Yeah, we
too.
started, we got them, we've been doing them just the 2nd semester. I think we were just talking
Right.
about it. I don't know if we started in February,
I think maybe it was February, you had them a while.
first
to
of,
work
I think
on.
it took us a little while to learn how to use them. I think the 1st of February is about all we've.
And these are all 4th and 3rd graders using them now?
Correct, every class, yep. And every student is assigned a number, and we have them
I was wondering
numbered.
how you kept that straight.
Yeah, so you might be assigned number 3, you come in every day and grab number 3, and 3 is assigned to somebody in every
Yep,
class.
yep.
And then when you upload your data, it clears it
Clears the time.
for the next class. So they're really quite efficient to use.
It's kind of nice watching a kid too, be like, oh man, I only got that many steps today, and then the next class period, they're like, gone.
And they remember from class to
They
class.
do.
It's-
Very
Yeah.
competitive. I
Very.
know I have one that I wear and my daughter got one.
Mhm.
And it was not a very good parenting moment when I dropped her off at school and I'm like, don't run around at recess
Yeah.
because I want to beat her. But, that's how the kids love the challenge.
Right. And especially having class competitions too, it helps, like I said, with behavior. Because some classes are like, well, why does Mr. Similink's class always win? Well, you guys have the same opportunity, we're doing the same thing, so it starts with you. Close the mouth.
I have a couple extra copies. Does anybody need a copy?
Did you guys get copies?
Okay.
That's really nice.
I have a competition with my son too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Really
Yeah,
neat.
thank you.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Pretty good. It's good.
Yeah.
Nate, does he want these kids to sign?
Okay, next we have school improvement report. We have the 2018 spring NWEA results.
Yep, and this is the document that we include in the annual progress report. And so, just a reminder, when you look at the color coding, it's the same class that's going diagonal, so it's color coded by class, so you can over time see the growth. I'm gonna point out just a couple of points. I thought actually this year was a very good year for NWEA. We saw some good things happen. In reading, you'll notice in third grade, they made 9 points growth. It's been a little while since we'd made that much growth in, from fall to spring, and that's usually what we compare. For your information, we do give it in the winter to, 3rd through 8th grade students. Not, high school doesn't give it in the winter. And so, that kind of lets teachers know where they are on, you know, on their growth. I also noted in 6th grade was very impressive in 6th grade. They had a new reading series this year, and I don't know whether that was an effect on that. Sometimes this can also give you a guide on systems thinking, NWEA, where's your programs the strongest, where's your programs the weakest. And 6th grade made some really pretty good growth there, taking it to 224, and I think that was the highest they'd ever, you know, pre-post test, fall, winter, fall, spring. That was another place. Another one was in 8th grade. You know, I thought there was some things there, even though last year they started out 227 score, and then they went to 227 again, and then you see where they took them, 224 to 227 and went up 3 growth points. So it's a matter of just looking at growth. And as when we compare to national beginning of the year norms in state, or in end of year norms, you'll see that we've always outdone the national norms. So I've never ever really emphasized that a lot, because that's kind of a given. Turning to math, I just want to point out a couple of good points there. 6th grade also had a very good year in math, made 10 points growth, and that was the biggest growth 6th grade had ever made in all the years that you're seeing on your chart there. I thought it was pretty good. They ended up at 231 RIT points, and that's really, when you look across there in 7th grade, ended up with the same. It's just kind of an interesting thing. It'd be challenging to figure out what 6th grade did this year, Jerry's not here, compared to prior years, in both reading and math. What made that difference and what impacted, kind of a systems thinking type approach. And then if you look at high school, 9th, 10th, and 11th, you'll see that they made, the 10th graders made really pretty good growth, 6 points. And that was pretty good for them last year. It's, for reading, just to give you kind of an information, reading growth isn't like, you're not gonna see the growth at high school. The number of points isn't gonna increase, because once you're a good reader, you're a good reader. So that's why you don't see those, like, topping out. 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade often look the same. But in math, their skills are building as they're getting into more math classes and differentiation in those algebra, geometry, those types of classes. And so the sophomores, I felt like, did a really good job this year. It'd be something to share with your teachers there, and just kind of find out, what are you doing here to make a difference? What did you have to do to pull it together?
Well, and look at the juniors as well, went from -3 to a +3, so that's the same amount
Last
of
year,
growth.
that was kind of
Right.
frustrating last year, so, yeah. So you kind of got, what are we doing different? Because that's really kind of looking at the systems thing, reflecting what may happen with the growth. And science, I'll present to you when we do the APR this summer, and I'll share that information, because we only give that in 5th, 8th, and 11th grade, the science text. So, any questions about the NWEA fall to spring testing?
Okay, moving on to the personnel report.
I would like to recommend Samantha Clayson for a third grade teaching position at Adams Elementary School. Samantha is a December 15, 2015 graduate of University of Northern Iowa with majors in K-6 elementary education, early childhood regular education, and early childhood special education. Samantha has 2 years of teaching experience in the Madison Northwest Webster School District as a 5th grade classroom teacher. If approved, she would be on step 0 of the BA lane, $31,315 of the 2018-19 salary schedule. Approval is recommended contingent upon receipt of a clear background check.
Chair Raymond is recommending Renee Frederickson as an extended school year teacher. Approval is recommended.
I don't have the new one. Okay, I would like to recommend Michaela Bloom, Cassidy Branning, and Morgan Kirsch for ESY Teacher Associate positions.
I'm recommending Kirk Christensen for summer driver's education instructor. If approved, Kirk would receive $6,191. Approval is recommended. Jerry Raymond's recommending Cynthia Painter for the 8th grade special education position at Carroll Middle School. Cynthia is a 2015 graduate of Morningside College with a Master's of Arts in Teaching and Special Education. Cynthia holds endorsements in K-12 athletic coach, K-12 reading, K-12 instructional strategist 1, mild moderate, and 5-8 middle school generals. She has 26 years of experience and approved she'd be on step 23 of the MA lane, $62,353 of the 2018-19 salary schedule. Approval is recommended contingent upon receiving a clear background check. Keith Strives recommending Cynthia Painter for the assistant boys swimming coaching position. Cynthia has 3 years of swim coaching experience. If approved, would be on step 0 of the salary schedule and receive $1,722. Approval is recommended. Jerry Raymond's recommending Jesse Strong as an extended school year teacher at Carroll High School. He's also recommending Lowell Becker as an extended school year teacher associate at Carroll High School.
I would like to recommend Kim Renning as summer school teacher at Carroll High School. Approval is recommended.
Okay, Sarah is recommending Nancy O'Brien, Janie Sipker, Suki Longnecker, Kim Pedic, and Mindy Stout for food service worker positions for the summer food service program. She's also recommending Kim Pedic for a 7-hour per day food service position that will start in June. And Kim has over 10 years of kitchen experience and will be heading up the summer outreach program, as well as learning how to cashier, work in any building, and covering when staff is gone. She is very excited to work at the school and has a daughter who will be a junior at Carroll High next year. Due to the level of experience she has, I recommend her pay to be $11.75 per hour. Approval is recommended contingent upon receipt of a clear background check.
Keith Strives recommending Brenda Lindgren for the middle school football and middle school basketball cheerleading sponsor positions. If approved, she would receive $637 for each position. Brenda's a 2nd grade instructor at Fairview and has worked for CCSD for 4 years. Jerry's recommending Renee Frederickson and Caitlin Kaufman as summer school teachers at CMS. And Jerry's also recommending Tanya Onken for an extended school year teacher position at CMS.
Any questions?
One question I have is maybe there's for Cynthia Painter, a 2015 graduate and 26 years experience.
I think that's when she received her master's.
Okay, that's what as I was looking at it. So
Mr. Corey, so you have to do, wait and do Corey then after the motion.
Well, that's being tabled for some reason or another. I might have to speak out on that.
Sorry.
This link of this agenda goes out on Thursday afternoon. Anybody that had a problem with it could have contacted either the board or myself between now and then. And for this to come up at the board table at this time is inappropriate in my opinion.
Questions on it? Okay. Need a motion?
I'll move to approve the recommendations for hiring with number 2 being tabled.
second.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Next, we have the non-bargaining wages and salaries.
Last month, the board approved the amount not to exceed $54,000 for non-bargaining, total package salaries and wages for non-bargaining staff. In your packet is a breakdown of how that breaks out. And the total of $53,990.82 of the $54,000 was used, and so we were right there.
Do we need that approved?
Yes.
Move to approve the non-bargaining wages and salaries.
Second.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Next, we have the principal reports. Sue?
Yeah, do you wanna project or?
Yeah, just kind of- These girls put me behind the remote for me to do it at home. You don't want sports center first?
Oh, yeah.
You also eats lunch in here, can't you? Not me.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a short just a PowerPoint of things that are going on. There's lots of field trips going on, lots of speakers, lots of activity going on at Fairview and Adams. So this was the track meet at Guthrie Center. We usually have the AEA track meet here in Carroll, but of course we have no track. So we went to Guthrie Center and we had to kind of rush it. I think they got everything done, but it was also a 2-hour early dismissal day for us, for PD. So we're just trying to get it done. We have all of our kids participate in that. Rob, I think I've got another slide there of kids that are just participating. They have a good time. A lot of parents attend this. This is very important to the students and families. The next is, we have Matt Fleschner, who's a pharmacist in town, from Medicat Pharmacy, and he's talked to the students about his job in being a pharmacist. Second grade, he's been working with second grade. He also, next slide, also showed some of the tools, some of the things that he uses in his profession. We get a lot of experts coming in that are either graduates or family members of staff here. So it's a Tiger Thing. STEM is big at Fairview and Adams both. They did a little bit with the creating habitats for animals, and this happens to be first grade. They have little animals there and they create the habitat, and that's taught. Ms. Treadway from ISU Extension works with the students and teachers in our buildings. And this next slide,
I'm getting there.
yep, that's fine, is also the same, just a little bit more with the habitats there. And the children, like, they have a room, both at Fairview and Adams kind of have a special room for that. The STEM room is down here at the very end in the hall, and at Fairview, it's down in the kindergarten pod. We have an extra room there. Blank Park Zoo, a couple of our teachers took a class out at Swan Lake, and where they had, if they attended the class, then somebody would come and work with them from Blank Park Zoo. So they came and they shared and shared lizard, let's see what else we got there. Snake, it looks like a snake. It looks like, and I thought that's a ferret there. And she kind of came and spent time with all of our third grade classes. And then the next slide, last week they went to the Blank Park Zoo, and you'll kind of just see some pictures there of them looking at different things. There's giraffes in there, they're climbing, riding. So that's all like 6 pictures of the zoo. They really had a good time. They just started going there last year, and it's been a successful field trip for them. And then in preschool, we have 3 family days. One's a literacy day, one's a math day, one's a science day. And this happened to be a math day that was held last week or the week before. And so you see parents coming in, working with their children on different math activities in the classroom. And I believe I have another, yeah. This one is second grade. This is one we had cats come in from the animal rescue. This is tied into problem solution. High school kids approached us and wondered if we could have our students read to cats. And so we were trying to raise their listening comprehension. And anyway, we did this, and so each class, second grade class, got to read to students, and then today we had 2 classes. We started out with a half hour. The cats did not have a good attention span. But today we went 2 15-minute periods, and the kids read really good, and the cats listened really good. So whatever you do here.
Cats with
Anyway.
ADHD.
Really. Okay, then field trips, the first grade always goes to Twain's up in Breda, make the fire trucks. So you'll see kids in there. Another one, I think we got one more, and then they all love going that. Second grade, you can go to that one. This is their second year to go on the train to Boone. They love the trip. The kids love the trip, and it's been it's hard to find trips that are close enough that we don't have to worry about bathroom breaks and all that. And the Boone trip seems to work out really well for second grade. And then another picture by the train, and they loved it. And it's a tiger thing. We got a lot of tiger paws and paw power at Fairview and Adams. So anyway, any questions on that?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We have Jerry's.
Jerry is at the concert tonight, so I would, rather than try to do that for him, I would encourage you just to take a look at that on your own time, and if you have any questions, please, be sure to give me a holler.
All right, I opted for the multimedia presentation tonight in lieu of all the writing. It's just, there's a lot of things going on here with preparation for graduation, academic awards, and all of those things that are culminating experiences for the end of the year. So I've tried to do my best to capture those for you. The next slide is the attendance thus far. Shows you how the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade are doing, and then our cumulative percentage. I'd like to thank you again as a board for approving the Thespian Society. Mr. Horsley was there with us in a very hot gym that night, or auditorium, and we inducted 12 students into the Thespian Society and elected officers that night as well. So thank you again for that. I thought this was kind of an interesting bit of information. Student Michaela Butel, who is a junior, she wrote an essay, was encouraged by Mr. Ascheid through the Ag Department to write an essay for the World Food Prize. And so she is now considered, she was accepted for her essay. She's a 2018 Borlaug Scholar. And so on April 30th, she spent the day in Ames at the World Food Prize Youth Iowa Institute, learning about solving world hunger and food insecurity. So that's a pretty neat honor that you may or may not have heard of. So I threw that on here. Harley graduation. We had that on May 1st. We had probably, maybe 40 people out there, which was pretty neat. And each student had to present their bike. And since then, one student is interviewing for a position out there. The others go out and visit often because they had such a great experience. And then on Friday, a representative from Des Moines Area Community College and the individual that's in charge of the internship at Harley partnered together, and that's going to be a full-fledged internship starting next year in the fall, partnering with DMAC and Harley. So we were really excited about that because oftentimes it's hard to find those special internships for certain kids. We run out of things, so that's pretty exciting, and all students in the community will benefit from that. Next slide. Rotary Club always does such a nice job of honoring the top 10 students. As you can see, there are 8 here. 2 of the 10 were playing in a golf tournament that day, Arrington Jensen and Summer Sinnard. But it's just as much an education for these kids because they really don't have an understanding of what the Rotary Club is. So they learn about Rotary by being there. I said, remember the bicycle helmets in 3rd grade? This is who gave them to you. So they did a nice job of representing Carroll High School. I really want to thank the board as well for being a part of the Thompson Tigerland and Academic Awards Assembly we had on May 9th out at the Carroll High School gym. You being there and staying there throughout the presentation meant a lot to those kids. We not only honored the tops in Tigerland, but the 9th and 10th honor roll, and then we did another round of the character awards. So we really appreciate your support in that. If you remember last year, Mr. Durkoff came with some students and they talked about the rocket rally. Well, he's really gone high tech. He's got drones in there now and all kinds of things. So I just linked one launch here. If there should be linked, Rob. Here we go. And they design a T-shirt every year. He's got all the T-shirts around his room, and there's all the kids that were in the class. There's the rockets. I mean, this is a big deal, you know. And he says he doesn't like teaching physics. Mm-hmm. See, he's got a camera facing here. He'll have the drone, he'll have another camera, so you can get all sorts of shots. It was interesting, and Rob, you heard it at Rotary. Several of the kids mentioned that this was their favorite memory of Carroll High School. It's a beautiful day. Do a slow-mo view so you could. Isn't that cool? It's amazing. Each year it's better. Let's see. Each year in the fall, the let's see, Rob, I think we're one behind. Okay. Each year in the fall, the senior class selects juniors that will be a part of their graduation. Not only do they act as ushers and escorts throughout the graduation ceremony, but they also work very hard at the scholarship recognition ceremony. And these kids are amazing. I couldn't do it without them. They start early in the ceremony by escorting the scholarship presenters to the back of the stage, get them seated properly. They set up the reception, they clean everything up, and they were smiling. That was after they were done. So they also help out tremendously with graduation, which is coming up next Sunday. So next slide, please. I thought this was a really neat gesture from the Carroll Area FFA. They had their plant sale, and they also had these plants that were in the greenhouse that were very healthy, and they asked St. Anthony Regional Hospital if they could donate some plants to the cancer patients and the dialysis wing, and they were super excited about that. Iowa assessments, one of the things that we look at once they get to the high school level is those students that score in the advanced proficient all the way across the line in reading, math, and science. We had 7th and 9th grade students. We had 14 10th grade students. One student in that 10th grade section had perfect scores on all of the tests. And that's pretty remarkable. And 5 11th grade students that earned advanced proficient. Semester test schedule. Semester tests are coming up a week from tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday. Our schedule changes a little bit each year because we need to accommodate our shared time teachers and our students who are shared from our WEVA. So we've kind of come up with a system that isn't necessarily chronological, but it somehow fits everybody's needs. So that's on there. Professional learning. We all met on May 9th, and all of the PLC leaders were directed to talk to the PLC teams and find out, kind of wrap up the year as well as set some goals for next year. And the building leadership team is meeting on June 4th with the PLC leaders there to discuss that. As directed by you, the board, the 3.5 hours that the staff were required to do are being completed outside of school. I have record of that. And I'm also proud to say that we have lots of staff members at Carroll High School that are participating in professional learning this summer. And to end my presentation, our Service Learning Day is a project of Problem Solution Projects, and it's been going on for, have you guys done it every year? Okay. 5 years, this might be our 4th or 5th year, and I say this year was probably by far the best because it could happen rain or shine, and it was, I felt, true service learning. So if you could click on the link, please, Mr. Cordes, here is a Tiger Vision production that wraps up service learning in a really nice way. These were students that went over to the middle school and worked with the middle school students on team building. Oh, I guess it says what they're doing, so. Why that didn't come across. I don't know if she's reading to that cat or not, Sue. questions on anything?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have recommendations on a K-5 reading series.
Yeah, and last month I shared that we were down to 2 series that we were reviewing. I want to introduce my team. This team has really put in a lot of time since December all the way through the process, so I want to introduce the ones that are here. We'll start with Holly Warnke, and she represented preschool. Kindergarten was Candace Ostrich, first grade Heather Cornelius, second grade Brenda Lindgren, third grade Linda Borick, fourth grade Ryan Simmelink. Then we had Ashley Ehrenholz representing Title I Reading, and Kim Shields was our instructional coach. And maybe they can kind of share just a little bit before I actually present the proposal. You'd like to share out something about the process?
I will start. We found out early in the process that most of the schools across the nation are actually using Journeys. And it was pretty obvious that we weren't going to come to a consensus and have 100% consensus on a series, which you would expect in a preschool through 5th grade. And so we reached out to other schools, and one of the schools, Winterset, was previously using Treasures, like us, and have been using Journeys for the last 4 years. It was interesting because their principals had said too, we didn't have 100% consensus, but it is well liked now, 4 years into the process. So it was important to reach out to some of those other schools. Forest City was another school that I contacted, talked to their principal, and it was pretty consistent, really, the feedback. So that was encouraging.
Anyone else? Yeah, something
I think that we tried to look at all of the big components of a reading series, the comprehension, the phonics, the written language part of it, the rigor, the non-fiction versus fiction, and I don't know, this one was a nice balance between Treasures and what we have currently been doing, and the other one that we were looking at was the Benchmark Advanced, which would have been quite different than what we have, the way that we have been teaching reading right now, which, and that's why we brought the whole staff on board to see presentations for both of those. We thought that was very important, and I'm really glad we did for both of those. So I think we feel pretty good about the strength and the rigor of all of the components in this series.
And the folks who are using it have said it is much more rigorous than Treasures was, so that was encouraging too.
Do you have some piloting it then, or
No,
outside
we
of
are-
the district?
It was outside the
Outside of the
district.
district.
Outside of the district. So one thing I think I would try to emphasize we realize it's a systems decision. It's not, we can't we're not an island, so we have to think to what it'll be like when they go into 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade on up. So we're trying to lay a stronger foundation, which I feel like, and I think they would agree. Right from day one, Treasures wasn't rigorous enough. It's not enough, because if we kind of hold ourselves down with the materials that are available through that. So our recommendation to you is to go with Journeys, and I just want to give you a little bit of information. I'll just kind of point out some things in the process. The whole recommendation for purchase cost will come to about $169,000, a little bit more than that, and that would include $158,611 for materials, and then an additional $10,500 for online resources for Title I and special ed. Now, a person I neglected, Patty Myshart couldn't be here, so she worked with us also. 5th grade was also with us. So not only, and Kathy Helber she was also representing the specials teachers, knowing that they work with tighter time. So we have 2 people that are on our team that aren't here. One thing you'll notice is kindergarten is a very expensive item because there's so many hands-on materials, extra things that you get. First grade is also expensive because they have 6 basal readers. I think one of the presenters shared that they have little hands, they can't hold a big book, so they give 6 different ones, similar to what we do in Treasures and we've done forever, it seems like, first grade. So theirs is a kind of expensive grade. As you go, second grade gets a little cheaper because they've only got 2 of those basal hard-covered books. And then third, fourth, and fifth are pretty much the same because there's only one, or wait, third grade has 2 books, fourth and fifth get much less cost, pretty reasonable because there's only 1 book. In addition, we get a lot of support materials. We have digital access for our classroom teachers and special ed teachers. We get our core products that we need plus leveled readers, and we get above level, on level, below level, ELL. There's a special product that we can use that Sandy Kluver can use, our classroom teachers can use with our English language learners. A lot of hands-on materials for that. And as I said, the component also was some electronic supports for our special ed teachers. We've got enough for 2 kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. That would include Title I, access to online services too. So I don't know, can anybody else think of anything maybe in the program that you'd like to specifically point out that you liked, or kind of did I cover it enough? See?
What was the difference between the 2 programs that you looked at that you chose this one?
I think there were good points to Benchmark Advanced. It was good, but it was way out of maybe not so user-friendly because it was so different. I think particular frustration occurred mostly at the upper grades. It was just too concerned about even the literacy pieces that were available, the literature that they had, nonfiction and fiction. They were very much focused, but it was just it would have required maybe some work on like one-on-one writing, one-on-one reading. It was just we would have had to maybe approach some PD from a different way than we're accustomed to. And right now we only have so much for PD. This should be a good switch up. We're gonna switch up to Journeys, but we're also gonna be able to take some of the things that we already know are working and be able to incorporate those ideas. And like I said, it's a systems decision. One grade level can't operate on an island, so we've gotta be a team on this whole thing.
Plus, I think, Jen, that on the Benchmark Advance, I don't think there was enough, there weren't as many school districts using it to show that it was making a difference in their reading scores. And so, to me, that was kind of
I think there are only 2.
2, it was
actually, that are
Glidden
using
and
it.
West Burlington, I believe. And that's hard to get a representation when you've got 2. I mean, I praise Glidden for doing this because I think, it's challenging, but they're also working in smaller less classrooms. We've got 5, 6 sections. We got a lot more teachers that are working with this, so it makes it, I think it's gonna be rigor. It's gonna be rigor, but we wanna provide, opportunities for training. We're gonna be we're gonna get, with this series, he's gonna give us 2 days, 2 trainers on, hopefully if the calendar we've got a date picked out at the beginning of the school year, free, but then we're also gonna use probably some of our professional development money, if it's agreeable to the staff, for 2 more representatives to come in January. And the schools we've talked to recommended lower elementary be in one training and upper elementary be in another, because they're kind of 2 worlds, like kindergarten first, even second might be a little different than third, fourth, and fifth, and we really want to make this work. So we talk about PLCs, focused on this, they're going to be able to plan lessons, and I think we've got the vehicle we need to make it work with our PLC time.
And this looks like it has a writing component
It
too.
does.
And Treasures didn't have that, did it?
No, they were creating their own writing.
They had it,
It
but
was
it was we.
Well, it doesn't align to the cores.
Right.
No, and that was the thing, the core standards came out after we purchased the series. They might say it was doing something, they may slap that benchmarker standard in there, but really, when we got to it, it really wasn't, you know, if you just copied it, you'd think, oh yeah, great job, but sometimes you gotta dig deeper. What does that standard really mean, you know, that the Iowa Corps is saying there? What does it really mean? You know, because interpretation can lean you both ways, you know, rigor and non-rigor, depending on what you got in the head. But the PLCs, I think those PLCs that we have at the grade levels will help teachers determine what does that standard, how does that standard look with this series, and how can we, you know, build that rigor into our instruction.
And the writing, it's very focused on the writing process.
Mhm.
So, and that was also, we got feedback on that also from the principals I talked to, and that was strong, and also the vocabulary and the rigor in the vocabulary compared to
The
training.
online portion also was that, like, the students will have the same login, because it's the same program as math, so they'll just have one login to log in for like their reading, to look at level readers and stuff as the same as math, so that's really nice that that's, like at second grade, it's hard to give them like 7 different logins, so it's nice that they'll just have one to get on and everything will be in one spot for them.
And one that they're all familiar with.
Yeah.
And the Go Math is the same company, so that's what they're talking. Once they have access to the Go Math site, they can go in there for their reading journeys and is in there too. So, yeah. And that wasn't a deciding factor, but it's a nice perk with the program too.
And I think the fact that it's the most widely used across the nation is a big, that's a plus. I mean, that says something.
I feel we can contact schools around the state and just get, you know, as second grade teachers want to contact second grade teachers, we can find a second grade teacher or class at a, you know, somewhere in the state that they can maybe communicate with or talk to, you know.
I got excited because I saw the first page and it was for the special ed, and I was like, oh, it's only $10,000.
Yeah, that's, yeah. And then you look at the other page,
Yeah.
and 10,000, and you're thinking, 10,000.
That was just a warm-up.
10,000 on top of the other, so, anyway.
Do you feel like your prep time for as teachers is better with this curriculum, or
With
just different?
This one, I think it will be more, because they're familiar with kind of some of the processes. I think if you had to start with the benchmark advance, it would require a lot more prep, because it's a different way of approaching reading. Not that, I'm not gonna say it was wrong, but it was just a deeper, it was just a different way, and some of the literature, fifth grade, fourth and fifth grade, you know, really thought that some of your struggling readers aren't going to be, they felt like maybe they wouldn't want to read because some of the topics were not.
They were very engaging.
And so we have to keep them reading. We can't have them burn out on reading in fourth grade or third grade or whatever. So we want to keep, and I think some of the selections seem really good with journeys that are comparing and contrasting and a lot of different comprehension skills in that.
And I think it's important to realize also that there is not a magic reading series out there that's going to be the answer to everything. You know, it's going to take teamwork in our PLC, in our team meetings, and thinking outside the box, and with any series that does. You know, it's not about the book, it's about the explicit instruction and how it's presented too. So, and I think our PLC, our teams get stronger every year, and that will help us out too.
Any other questions? Rob, had you already kind of accounted that for that money, hadn't you? I remember you giving us a heads up.
Well, it's gonna have to come from a variety of sources, and some of it will come from some carryover money from the early childhood, and some of it's gonna have to come from, what's that account called, Gary? Flexibility account, and, which will have to get set up, and then some of it's gonna have to come out of reserves. I mean, that's what, there's $6 million there in reserves, and that's what it's for. And so, one-time expenditures, and so, make it work.
I think
I would make sure that you get after July 1 delivery, because we don't wanna pay for it out of this fiscal year.
And it's an 8-year contract, so whatever we're doing, we could have gone 7. I feel like 8's a good year for us. We can do that. Then it'll be time to review and see what they want to do.
So every year you're just replacing the consumables
Whatever we
that was
need, yeah,
used?
whatever they'll replace for us, and then also the online services are good for 8 years, so we have everything locked in, we
So
should not,
what's your reoccurring cost?
there won't be a reoccurring cost for us.
Okay.
The only thing is, there's one workbook you could get, but he said they aren't even, no schools are requesting that, so I think you've got, everything that we've got will be, the online is basically what you're paying for, you know, plus the books for 8 years, you've got a contract for 8 years.
So that amount covers the 8 years of
Yeah,
free
just like we did
books.
for Go Math, but we don't have the consumable piece, I don't believe yet, so.
And you said last meeting you have so many, I'd call licenses, and you can adjust those between
Sure.
grade levels to
Yeah,
fit
and
different
I tried to
large
get
and small
enough.
class sizes.
I tried, one problem we have with treasures was we didn't order enough books, then you try to find a copyright book when your classes got big. So I've tried to, you know, be able to provide that, I'm sure that will, can hopefully maintain.
When
with
you're
our
locked into so many licenses, it's
Yeah.
not locking into so many at kindergarten, first
No,
grade, second
no,
grade.
no,
It's-
no, no, so, we're doing, yeah, we got it covered, I think, so. And then after the beginning of the year, you know, as we get into this, we'll come back and report to you about what we found and what's working and not working, give them maybe a semester to get going on it, and let you know.
Come and teach a lesson.
Anyway, any other questions?
Get a motion then?
Do you need the amount of motion? I move to approve the recommendation on the K-5 reading series.
I'll second.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And thanks for all your time looking into all the
Yeah,
concerns.
it was a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next thing we have on the schedule is the revised, the 2018-19 school calendar, professional development days.
The only thing, as many people that looked at this calendar, I don't know how we missed that we had 186-day calendar for a 187-day contract. And so I think we were so worried about the Wednesdays that we forgot to add an additional day. So really the only difference is moving the new teacher workshops back a day, so they would be the 14th, 15th, 16th, and then 17th and 20, 21, 22 would be professional development days for the staff. And so we would need a new motion on this calendar.
I move we accept the revised 2018-2019 school calendar.
I second. You wanna change that date on the top too, Rob?
Oh, thank you.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John? Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Next, we have 2018-2019 preschool calendar.
Sue?
Yep. Get busy this meeting, Sue.
No, yeah,
Thanks.
put it all down one meeting. Thank you, sir. Okay, so this is a proposal for the statewide voluntary preschool program that we have, and I'll give you a little background. Yeah, we need a couple background. Just to give you a little history, I started out with just a paragraph there. Yeah. Okay, so the Carroll Community School District has participated in the statewide voluntary preschool program for a few years, several years. And in the beginning, they started with the morning, I was not the person who wrote that proposal, but they started with an AM and PM session 4 days a week. After a few years, we went to a 5-day program, and on weeks when they had 2-hour early dismissal, preschool was held 4 days. Currently, our preschool program runs from 8:15 to 11 and 12:15 to 3, and that's a total of 2 and 3/4 hours a day. On 5-day weeks, students have 13.75 hours of preschool in the morning and afternoon, And then when we have a 2-hour early dismissal, then the students meet for 11 hours. So that's the way we run the current program. The calendar was adopted, that's with a 90-minute early out schedule. And if we maintained our schedule, because right away I got email from parents, school parents of, the teachers or parents of students coming in, and they were saying, well, I want my child in the morning because that's going to be longer. So they would go 8:15 to 11 in the morning, and then on early out days they would be 12:15 to 1:30, and that would only be 1.25 hours. Well, I thought, this is a can of worms we don't want to open up, that the longer session on Wednesday morning, or Wednesday morning in the afternoon would be shorter. Thus, we're putting together the following proposal. I met with Dr. Lean and Rob, Tom Reeder, Ted Geringer from Kemper over the past several weeks, and we met many times, just trying to work out something that we could live with that would be equitable and fair to, our students. We discussed how we could maintain that 8:15 to 11 a.m. and the 12:15 to 3 p.m. schedule. The calendar, the general calendar you just approved, has 28 90-minute early dismissals on Wednesdays, and there's 7 regular dismissal Wednesdays. So that would be like the first week of full week of school, Labor Day week, October conference week, January teacher work day week, the March conference week, Easter Good Friday week, and the last week of school. If we do not have preschool on all scheduled Wednesdays, each section would miss 96.25 hours. That's the 35 days times 2.75 hours, and of preschool. That would be preschool time, all never on a Wednesday. By adding in 21 half-day sessions, students receive an additional 57.75 hours of instruction, so we get back some of that time that we lost, more than half, for both AM and PM. This would allow preschool teachers to have 2 full days, except December and May, to work in their classrooms and meet in PLCs. Tom Reeder believes that we can provide equal AM and PM sessions on the 90-minute early dismissal Wednesdays. We would run regular day schedule, 8:15 to 11 and 12:15 to 3. When drivers get back from routes, 90 minutes early out, schedule K through 12, they would pick up preschoolers at 3 o'clock to take home. During conference weeks, students would only, if we were going with the calendar of no Wednesdays, they would only be able to attend preschool on Tuesdays on those 2 weeks that there's conferences. With the recommended calendar, we can offer preschool on those Wednesdays, so they would have school during conference week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays during those 2 weeks. Preschool classes would be held on 21 of the 28 90-minute early dismissals. Most months, preschool teachers would have 2 full days to work on creative curriculum, gold entries, quality preschool program standards, and that's something that's new this year from the Department of Ed. It was old, we got away from it, now it's coming back again. Professional development and combined Fairview Kemper PLC, and that was a request from Ted that we see if we can provide our preschool teachers time to work together, all of them, both buildings. There would be no school on conference days as past practice. This gives preschool teachers the equivalent of 3 conference days for each conference period, but they also have more students than the average classroom at Fairview. Keep in mind that CCSD has added an additional preschool teacher at Fairview for the 2018-19 school year, and class sizes appear to be around 13 or 14 with a teacher plus 2 teacher associates in each Fairview classroom, 8 sections. So we're going from 6 sections, approximately the same number of students, to 8 sections starting this fall. Dr. Lean and I met with the we'll meet, this is our proposal. Dr. Lean and I will meet with the preschool teachers regularly to identify positives and concerns related to the preschool program. The first meeting will be held prior to our first 90-minute early dismissal, Wednesday, September 12th, to discuss issues that need to be resolved. A second meeting would be scheduled after September 12th to determine what, if anything, needs to be done to improve the effectiveness of Wednesday early dismissals. Other meetings will be scheduled around right away. October 3rd and October 24th, meeting times and dates would be adjusted to meet the schedules of all involved. Dr. Lean and I will continue to work with preschool teachers to ensure effectiveness of instructional time and transportation. And our decision impacts 4-year-olds, 3-year-old children with IEPs, parents, daycare providers, Head Start, bus drivers, teacher associates, and teachers. The sooner we are able to communicate this decision, the better. Thank you for your time and consideration. I did a lot of reading there, but I had to make sure I got all the details so you would understand why the proposal. I would have said, if we were going to go with the shortened 90-minute, and we would have done the hour and 25 or hour and a quarter in the afternoon, I would have said, that's just a mountain that we don't want to climb, perhaps, with the inequitable morning and afternoon. But when Tom said this is doable, we can make it work, Rob agreed, Dr. Lean agreed, we were all on the same page, Ted agreed, and this is our proposal for this coming school year. Any questions?
Why, back in the beginning, why was there a move from 4 days a week then to 5?
Because I think it only makes, the rest of us are all, kind of working on the 5-day a week, K
That's
through 12.
instructional time.
It was instructional time, and it was just the way to make it, improve the program. I mean, more contact time is our feeling.
So were teachers only employed then 4 days
No.
a week?
No, they were 5 days.
What are the preschool teacher thoughts? I see there's some back.
Someone's back here. Our preference is to just meet 4 days a week and have that 5th day. There's a lot involved with preschool that's not typical of the K-5 classrooms. We do have an assessment tool that we use with all the preschoolers. It's called GOLD, and I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago we presented it to the board, but it's, I brought a copy if you want to pass it around, but it's a list of objectives that all preschoolers are assessed on, and so we have to take documentation on every child for every objective that's in the GOLD assessment, and we do that 3 times during the year. So that's very time consuming. The other thing that we're supposed to do with it, to do it with integrity, is look at the data, plan according to what the data is telling us, and then implement that. And we're not only supposed to do that just individually, but as teams, and those teams include our associates that are in our classrooms. Typically, each classroom has 2 associates because we do have kids with special needs. So a lot of time would be spent on those Wednesdays using the GOLD, entering data, analyzing the data, and then implementing that in our classroom. One way we do that is in center time. We have about an hour of centers each day. You're supposed to weekly look at the materials that are in each center, change them according to how students are interacting with those materials, what their goals are, how we're trying to get them to the next level on that continuum. So we would be spending time changing out those centers. The Fairview teachers, and sometimes the Kemper teachers, have students with special needs, so we are the regular ed teacher and the special ed teacher. So we're required to take data on those kids weekly, and then also look at that data and plan accordingly. We have IEP meetings that we have to attend. A lot of times we do that over our lunch and our prep period, because that's the only time that we have. We have DS meetings, which happens before an IEP meeting, and we have kids on interventions. So when we were 4 days a week, I feel like we really used that time efficiently to help better the program. And so I guess we're thinking, the quality of the program is more important than the quantity. We want to be able to use that time to plan and do it meaningfully so that we can get the kids to the next level. I don't know, I just kind of rattled on a lot. The other thing that we're concerned about is that, as a district, we kind of all voted and said, this PLC time is important. It's important to meet weekly, and we would not be part of that if we went to the proposed calendar. So that's a concern for us, that we would not have weekly meetings.
But the PLC time they could have 3 hours of PLC on one of those Wednesdays, or 2 hours, or whatever, whatever makes it work. So their PLC time would be increased, perhaps. They still would have more time to meet than the 90-minute early dismissal teachers would be.
What do they do now on early dismissals, the preschool?
They,
When
Yeah,
there's no
with the PM,
preschoolers.
with the PM group.
There is no preschool on the early dismissals, right?
Morning or evening or
Right,
afternoon?
right.
So
We
it
kept
really
it-
wouldn't be much different because we are at 28 days now with the new calendar. But this year, we only had 12 or 13 early outs, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't be much difference if you take half of that, because my understanding is half of those Wednesdays, you would not have preschool, is that correct?
We would, for the proposed one,
Yeah.
be more than half you would have preschool.
we would have school
About half the
21 of the 28 PLC days.
21 of the 28, okay.
I think is that right, Sue? Did I find that right?
21 of 28, yeah. There's 35 days, there's those extra 7 days that they wouldn't have when everybody else is going to school. There is no early dismissals, so they would have 21 of 30, 21 of.
We are also required by the state to meet quality preschool program standards. And this year, we'll be required to do a desk audit. So that means, I have that document too if you want to see it, but we have to provide evidence that we're following the QPPS standards to the state. And that's due in December, and that takes a lot of time to get that information all collected and presented in the way that they'll accept it. I can't remember the total number. There's a total number of QPPS standards, and then there's only so many that they require us to send in evidence of, but we're required to follow all of them.
So how do districts do it that meet 5 days a week and have all day preschool?
The only one that we're aware of through our AEA consultant is Glidden, and
There's others across the state though.
there could
I
be,
think in
I
our
don't know.
region, in her
Heartland,
area
that might be
region.
true, but I know
Right.
there are others across the state.
Yeah, just in Heartland
So
is
how are they
we have-
doing all of those things and still having every day, all day preschool? They're following the same calendar
I think-
that K-12 is following.
They're not.
Did Amy Hinken visit with you about that?
No.
No.
So Glidden has all day preschool?
They're the only one in Heartland that I know, but I know there are others in parts of the state.
Well, I was doing a conference call with teachers from Iowa City, and I shared our proposal here, and they said in Iowa City, they just want 3 hours. If they can get 3 hours, in a month, they were gonna be happy to be able to work together and work on some of this. I said, I don't know how they do the QPPS if they don't have no time. So all of theirs is beyond, I guess, the contract day, or maybe their contract goes longer than ours too, so. Not sure.
Did you talk with any parents when you're putting together the proposal to get parent thoughts?
No.
I mean, I know that's probably opening a can of worms
It-
too, but.
yeah.
Well, and parents already are talking. We had parents, like Sue said, that said, well, I want my kid in the morning class if they're gonna meet, the full time in the other classes. And I don't know where they got that information because it wasn't decided yet, but then they were speculating, well, they don't like the idea of doing some Wednesdays and not some Wednesdays because that's confusing for daycare or in-home daycares. So some said they wouldn't send them on Wednesdays. That could end up being 2. We don't have any idea how many would do that. The other concern we had is that would some want their preschooler to ride the bus with their sibling, or if the parent's picking up, would they want their sibling to get picked up? Some issues just with the small one on the bus, so.
From a
I've spoken
teaching
for everybody.
perspective, to me, having the contact hours is the most important thing, because these little guys come from varying backgrounds and experiences, and just to give them that head start as they go into kindergarten, or so that they're all in the same playing field as they go into kindergarten, I think is important. I know as a teacher that I went to IEPs at lunchtime, and you go above and beyond, by all means, your contract time. I would never argue that. But just the amount of contact hours is what concerns me as a board member, is that, you know, we wanna give these little guys the best start we can, and to me, that's in front of certified teachers that can lead them that way. I know that was a concern when we talked about switching it to every Wednesday, or pretty much every Wednesday. I don't know if there's a perfect solution, by any means.
Go back to data, and the biggest impact is that quality teacher in the classroom. If you don't have students in the classroom, it doesn't matter how good that teacher is. And I'll say the same thing I said when we looked at contact hours and reducing, you know, backing it off from June 1st this year. I just think having kids in the seats with teachers in front of them is too valuable. I am not a fan of going back 4 days. I really would not be a fan of that. And I understand what you're saying, and having information to fill out, and I wouldn't vote for it. I think having them 5 days a week is too valuable.
Just looking at the way this schedule is set up, the proposed one here, I just counted the no class Wednesdays, I counted 16, and there's 21 full of the Wednesday classes. When you look at it, you don't get more than you'll have 2 weeks back to back, and then there's a week off, or a Wednesday, I shouldn't say week
Right.
off, a Wednesday off. So they're not, I don't know, like I said, what you gotta file and do paperwork on, you'd have two Wednesdays, and sometimes only one, and then the next one's another Wednesday off, so I hope that would be
Wednesdays a month,
doable
you
to
wouldn't, yeah.
not get you too bogged behind and have a full day coming with not more than 2 Wednesdays in the classroom. So I do kinda agree with this. Like
I
the
think the
kids in front of the
PLC
teachers as much
time
as we
can be working on the QPPS. I mean, you don't have to do something that's a silo. You can do the QPPS. You can't?
Yeah.
I think those are two different things.
But, because PLCs is supposed to be helping the students.
QPPS isn't helping us.
It is, but it's.
QPPS is the program standards, though, it's not necessarily.
Well, how you can make it part of it. I think you can make it work.
Well, we can make anything work, we're not saying that.
Yeah.
We can make anything work.
Yeah, I know you can. And you have the administration behind you to help you with that too, so I'll do my share.
Here's the desk.
I haven't watched the video yet. I gotta watch the video.
So I just, I remain silent because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to step in, but I'll just, let you know that when Mrs. Ruck and I spoke about this, we do want to continually analyze it too. Give it a shot, see how it works. If we've got to make changes, we can communicate that out to parents and kids. So if it becomes an overload and a burden for you guys with the obligations you have, we'll find a way to make that work. But I agree, with the board's sentiment. We have wonderful teachers. The more you're in front of the kids, the better. I do want it to be quality, not just quantity. I agree with that as well. So maybe there's a compromise down the road. But I think giving this a shot at first and communicating it out to the community gives them the assurance too that we're doing our best to find the best route. And we'll visit it enough where we'll just listen to what you have to say and see what we can do then.
Well, and Sue's always been that way with us. She's always been very open to any concerns we have. She has found ways for us to get things done that we need to get done, and she's talked to us many times about this situation and how to do it. So I know she just didn't come up with one plan and didn't think of anything else.
Yeah,
She did.
let's beat her up a little bit. We met
Yeah.
both times she's.
No, we worked hard together. And
I wanted to make it.
I know you did.
So I'm trying.
She juggled a lot and met with a lot of people and got as much information as she could. But again, guys, we'll revisit it. It won't be something that has to be set in stone. We'll just do our best to meet the needs.
Is there any questions? Yes.
I move to approve the proposed 2018-19 preschool calendar as presented by Sarah.
I'll second.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
You're almost done, principals, a couple more. Next, we're going on to the board policy. Thank you for coming. We appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks for coming in,
Thanks.
appreciate your comments.
Review and revise the board policy 625, instruction at post-secondary educational institution.
You have a link there with the current policy or in your packet, and then the proposed policy. I think what ISB did was just clean up the language of the law in their policy, and so I would recommend that you delete the current policy and adopt the proposed policy as ISB stated.
Do we need to have a second reading or can we waive this?
I wouldn't have a second one. If it was me, I'd waive the second one, but that's up to you.
Questions on that?
I move to approve revised board policy 625 and waive second reading.
Second. We need to remove the one, two.
No, we'll just,
This one just says,
yeah.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Oh, I skipped one.
Yes.
Sorry. Going back up to E, we have a new job description for the Carroll Middle School dean being changed to assistant principal. It's in purple in your packet, if you have your packet. Did you, Kevin, I know you worked with Jerry on this. Was there anything that you wanted to highlight or talk about with it?
No, the conversation was just how the job's evolved over the years and what Mr. Raymond's hopes are for him and his role and the new assistant principal. So that's, it wasn't giant changes, but maybe just more reiteration of the duties and so making sure that a person who takes that role really understands. And we are just, for board information, Wednesday we have Zoom interviews with 5 candidates.
So is the changes just in the position title and then deleting that number 21?
Yeah, basically.
Questions?
About evaluator approval.
Well, if they already meet the criteria of having an administrator's license, they're supposed to have that. So I'm hoping that they do. That's a question I guess we'll have to ask prior to making any offer.
What were you asking, Brad? I didn't understand that.
Evaluator approval, so they can evaluate teachers, staff.
They gotta take the class I evaluate
Okay.
and make sure, but, since we've asked it to be an assistant principal and they have to have a license, they should have that, but I guess we can find out too.
Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the revision of the Carroll Middle School Dean of Students job description.
Second.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Skipping. Now we're to G, the approval of the 2018 Carroll School graduates.
Okay, I'm asking for approval of this list of students for 2018 graduation, pending, of course, meeting the graduation requirements set forth by the Carroll Community School District Board of Education.
How many are there, Kenny?
117.
How does that compare to last year? What were we?
113.
Good memory.
No, I had the minutes from last year.
Can we get a motion to approve the graduates?
I'll move to approve the listed 2018 Carroll High Senior graduates.
Second.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes. Thank you, principals.
You,
We went pretty fast, didn't we?
We'll have a glass of wine, too.
Next, we have the student registration process for this coming school year.
Online registration won't be any different than it was a year ago. And so, the press release is going out to the media. The link was activated on May 14th, so people can begin registering if they so desire at this time. If families that may not have access to computer or internet connection at home can certainly come to one of the buildings beginning June, I think it's June 4th. June 4th, anytime between 8 and 3, and we'll have personnel there to help them, and have stations set up for them to complete their registrations and things like that. So, if they have any questions, they can also check out our website and go from there. But Carrie Ladahoff, Craig Woolwater can also answer most of the questions.
Did it work pretty well last year?
For the first year, yeah, I thought so. The only hiccup we'll have now is that they can't pay fees until after July 1st. A lot of that has to do with free and reduced meal applications. And so they don't know how much to pay and things like that, and how much to put into the lunch account, because if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, they also qualify for free and reduced book fees. And so they've got to know whether or not they qualify for that in order to pay their fees. And so we ask that, typically that comes around the first part of July. So we wait, they either send them in, they know they're not going to qualify, they'll send a check in or pay online and things like that. But if they're in doubt, then they'll encourage them to wait until they find out. Or otherwise, they're sending money in and we're sending it back up.
Next, we have the administrator mentoring and induction program.
Each year, the board approves a mentoring induction program through School Administrators of Iowa. The code states that you are required to have one. School Administrators of Iowa is probably the most efficient program that is out there, and that's the only one that we have belonged to for as long as I can remember, as long as we've been required to do this. And so I'd ask that you approve the agreement between School Administrators of Iowa and Carroll Community School District.
I'll move to approve the agreement with SAI for 2018-19.
Second.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Next, we have a request for the Carroll area daycare use of school buses.
I think you can take J and K together. The Carroll area daycare is asked to use district buses for a variety of field trips. New Opportunity is asked to use district buses, I believe, to go to the Omaha Zoo at some point this summer. And we did grant those a year ago, and our recommendation is to approve those again this year. They'll pay the cost of the driver and fuel and things like that.
I just came from daycare board meeting right before this, and they were really appreciative of using the school buses last year. Say, in the past, they've used Western Iowa, and they have to give each child $3 to hand to the driver when they get on the bus. And she said it was just a nightmare, plus the mileage that they charge, so they're appreciative.
No, I move to approve the request for using the district buses.
Second.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Next, we're on to the business office report. Capital outlay, installation of the new fiber and conduit.
That can be tabled. I talked to Western Iowa Network this afternoon or this morning, and they don't have that ready yet, and hopefully will get that to us this week. If we get that, I would suggest that the board have a special meeting to discuss that and either approve it or not, so we know whether to move forward. And I would not let that wait until the June board meeting if it was me, simply because I think that puts us that much further back. So.
When did they say they would have it to you?
End of the week.
End of the week.
Next, we have the purchase of the new Whirlpool.
You have a handout in your packet. The Booster Club has offered to reimburse this. The high school, it's located at the high school in the athletic training room. They are in need of a new whirlpool. The reason it's before the board is because it's over the $5,000 threshold, slightly, I guess, and so, we will not, of course, pay the sales tax of $342.90, and so the amount you are approving is $5,715, and then, we will pay for it, and then the Booster Club will reimburse it.
I move to approve the purchase of the new whirlpool for $5,715.
Second.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
Next, we have the installation of the scoreboard and video board. We have 2 quotes.
Have two, yes, you had 2 quotes there. MediaQuest signs out of Cedar Rapids bid was $29,986. First class signs of Ames was $30,674, difference of $688. I would recommend MediaQuest signs myself, not only because they were the lower bid, but they were also a lot more efficient in getting it here.
Questions?
Their bid's a lot more detailed too.
Yeah.
Both of these companies have installed Daktronic boards before.
And we expected it to be around that, right? With this.
I expected it to be a little bit more than that, to be honest with you. I would've said it'd been closer to 40 than 30, but I was pretty pleased.
Is everybody okay using the MediaQuest?
I'll move to accept the MediaQuest signs bid for $29,986.
Second.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Now we have the consideration of purchase of the 2 77 passenger buses.
Transportation Committee met, John and Tom and I sat down and talked a little bit about our needs, and we are recommending the purchase of 2 77 passenger buses from Howland Bus Company for $79,500 apiece. If you're wondering why we're recommending the 218, those are still new buses. They're on the lot. They're stock buses, and didn't he say they were the same as the last 2 that we bought, John?
I think so.
And so
Trade-in value's not gonna change, that's for
no,
sure.
and so part of the reason of going with a 77 passenger bus as opposed to a 65 passenger bus is the difficulty in finding bus drivers. And I asked Tom how about the difficulty of maneuvering around town, and he says, well, we have some doing it now, and so it doesn't seem to be a problem. And so,
And the price is right.
yeah, rarely you'll buy a 77 passenger for less money than you will 65 passenger.
Yeah.
That was the case here, because they have them on the lot and they want to move them, and we'll take delivery of them right after the June board meeting, because we'll have that on the bill list in the June board meeting, and if the board approves it.
So will it come out of this fiscal year then?
Yes, money's there.
Questions? Get a motion?
I move to accept the purchase of 2 77 passenger buses.
Second.
Gina?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes. And we have the AEA purchasing agreement.
That's in your packet. It's an agreement that we have used for a number of years for the food service program. It's worked really well. They go out to bid as the AEA for the entire state, and then we can either choose to participate in that or not. Doesn't mean we have to buy all our stuff from them, and we don't. We use a number of different vendors, but the majority of the items that we purchase through the food service program come through this agreement. So we're recommending that it be approved for the 18-19 school year.
Is there a cost right there?
No, there's no cost.
So it's a good price, we can do it.
Yep, and for example, there are certain vendors that have maybe better produce than others, and we'll purchase through them. Some of them have different products that she likes to use that maybe the AD doesn't, the AA doesn't have. So yeah, we use a variety of different vendors. But especially produce, she'll try to buy from where they have the best produce, or maybe it's on sale or so forth. But,
Yeah, I move to approve the AA purchasing agreement.
One second.
Brad?
Yes.
Dwayne?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
When does the summer food program start? Do you know?
Well, I don't know the exact date, but they're only off about a week when we don't serve food, and then they'll start back up again. So the summer program starts right away there in June, first part of June, so.
Next, we have the audit.
Okay, we're finally getting ready to wrap up this fiscal year, but we're talking about prior fiscal year's audit. I can't remember, did I put that in your packet, or is that? Okay, and then I had some selected comparison information. Okay. And I'm not gonna go through the whole audit, but I usually like to do this comparison data so that you can see from last year, how do we compare, I shouldn't say last year, in this case it's 15-16, how do we compare then in 16-17? And there at the top are the ending fund balances, and you can kind of take a look at that and see how those compare. Obviously, the biggest one is the general fund. We increased significantly in the general fund. We were up 28%, or about $1.6 million. Management fund, we were down, and as you know, that was a planned reduction there. We have not levied enough the last couple of years to meet our expenditures, and that was on purpose to lower the ending balance in that fund. PEPL, it kind of bounces all over the place. That one depends on the projects that we have going on and the timing of them as to where our ending balance is gonna be. So in this case, we happen to increase by about 50%, but that can change pretty drastically from year to year. Same way with local option sales tax. That one didn't change a lot, but that can vary depending on the projects that we have in the pipeline, or if we're saving up for a particular project. Debt service fund, you'll see decreased by $67,000. If you remember, that was something that was done by board action. We actually do not levy property tax anymore for debt service because we don't have any general obligation bonds. And there was 67,000 something left in that fund, and we talked with our attorney, and I knew that it was legal anyway, and that money was then transferred into the PEPL fund, the remaining funds in there. So we still use the debt service fund, but it's basically a pass-through fund. The bonds that you have through local option sales tax and the PEPL bonds, that money is transferred into debt service when we have a payment due, and then it's paid out of debt service. But there shouldn't be much of a balance in there at any particular time. Student activity fund decreased slightly, about $4,000 from the prior year. Then you can see the revenues from the general fund. Kind of interesting. You'll notice local tax went up by 40%. My goodness, they must have levied a lot of tax. Well, no. The majority of that was the fact that when you passed that instructional support levy, part of that was from sales tax. And that was the first year that we actually received some of that.
Income surtax.
Yeah, what did I say?
Sales tax.
Oh, income surtax. So it took that long for it to get into the system. So that's why, I had a sheet here. Oh, here we go. That amounted to almost $500,000 of that increase. Your regular property tax did go up about $148,000. Your cash reserve went up about $80,000. So that's part of the reason why that local tax went up that much. The tuition, some of that has to do with your agreement with Arweva and the sharing of classes there. Let's see, skip down here a little bit. If you look at the very bottom, we talk about having the certified budget and then where we actually finish. And the certified budget, obviously, we try to aim a little bit high there. That's the one that's published in the paper, and you approve that in March. And you can see how we finished the year in terms of what we certified and then where we finished. And obviously we're good there. Then if you flip the page, there again is some more information in terms of how we compared to the prior year's audit in revenues there at the top, and then you can drop down and see the expenditures kind of in the middle of the page. I think the expenditures are kind of interesting. You'll notice that in instruction, the regular instruction was down by about $500,000. Special is special education in most cases. That was up slightly. And then other, which would be your vocational classes, co-curricular, and I'm wondering if some of the difference there might be the TLC as well. And so I'm guessing that there was a shifting of some of your regular instruction expenditures into the other category, which is why you see such a decrease there in the regular one. And then you have the support costs that we have, and you can see that overall, at the top, you can see that our revenues went up by 8.71% in the general fund, but our expenditures only went up 1.17%. And that's one of the reasons that you're seeing that our general fund balance is increasing. And that's been true here for the last couple of years. We really held down expenditures, and that helps. Then on the next page, as far as findings from the auditor, we really only had one this year, which is a low since I've been here. And it's kind of an interesting one. I don't know, maybe I can kind of paraphrase it, but in the student activity fund, we have a student council, obviously, at the high school. They raise money for various things. We got cited a few years ago in the fact that when they raise money, they need to identify what it's for. So, for example, if they're going to give money for Relay for Life, that needs to be identified on their fundraising activity. And they also raise money for scholarships during the year. Well, as I would do, they tend to wait and see what they have in their fund before they decide how many scholarships to give out at the end of the year. Well, what they're complaining about here, and it says this in the recommendation there, it is inappropriate to use the student activity fund as a clearing account for other funds. When the money is raised, it should be raised for a specific purpose and deposited into that fund that can legally expend the money. If the money is raised for scholarships, it should be receipted into the scholarship fund when it is raised. So in other words, they don't want us leaving the money in the student activity fund until the end of the year and then transferring it over into the scholarship fund where the scholarships are paid from. Now, I think that's a little picky. I've talked to other schools, they thought that was a little picky too, but we're gonna try to meet that. We may get cited for that again this year, because by the time we had everything set from this audit, they've already started fundraising for this current year. So we're trying to work around that, but I'm not sure I'm smart enough to do that. I think you're gonna see that cited again next year, but I'm not that concerned about it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but though that's the only finding that they had this year, so.
Have we done that for
They don't find
many
something, they're
years?
not doing their job.
And they just found it this year?
Yeah. They look a little harder sometimes.
When it's nice and clean.
So,
Do we need a motion to approve?
no,
that?
you really don't.
Okay. Any questions on the audit? Moving on to the budget reports.
Well, the budget report you have is in your packet tonight with physical plant and equipment levy and sales tax. Page 1 there is the 33-cent PEPAL. A majority of that money has been received. My guess is there'll be a little bit that trickles in yet, but it'll be pretty minimal. Page 2 has the sales tax. A couple things to point out there is that the $100,000 to transfer to debt service is year 1 of 10 that need to be transferred for the district's $1 million commitment that they would use $1 million in sales tax fund over the time of that loan. And so at the end of the fiscal year, or beginning of 19, Diane will transfer $250,000 from sales tax to meet the $750,000 obligation. So, page 3 is the voted PEPAL. Probably most important information is on the 4th page. You can see there that the district's received $671,728. I would guess there might be maybe up to about another $10,000 or $15,000 that'll come in there. But down below there, the summary of the bond financing for the whole project, we received $5,265,000 in bond proceeds. We received $150,331.90 for the bond premium. For a total of $5.4 million. Piper Jaffray's fees was taken out of there, and so total proceeds from the sale of the bonds was $5.3 million. Transfer from Silo will be $750,000. The district commitment of $1 million over a 10-year period. So total funds available for that project are $7.1 million. And so far we have expenses of $2.5 million, and so there's almost $4.6 million left to spend. And then you have a breakdown of those expenses and revenues on pages 5 and 6. And so on page 6, just to clarify this a little bit, the contract amount to Covenant Construction was $5,444,957, of which we've paid to date $1,977,254.10, and so about 36% yet, or excuse me, 36% has been paid. We still owe another $3.4 million on the work that to be done, and I will tell you that when we get a pay invoice now, they'll be big ones moving forward. Total cost, the all-in cost at this particular time is $6.4 million, and that includes obviously the architect fees and testing fees and all the other things that we have done. that 2.5 million expenses to date, that's all in, and that certainly does include, the money that's paid to Covenant. And so, just a little, wrap up our review of that particular fund.
Hey, Rob, we got the total on back on page 4, that's 7.1. I'm just looking forward if we get, and they come to everything don't overrun a bunch of cost, we likely maybe not use all of that.
Oh, I would be shocked if we used all of that.
So, I guess.
The reason I put that in there is that's the maximum amount of dollars the district has to work with.
Yes, yeah, that's,
Yeah,
so, that's kinda where I'm
I
saying.
would
is
say
that-
it should be, well, your projected all-in cost right now, is 6.4.
Right.
I would say when the dust settles, that's probably gonna be around, 6.75 or 6.8.
So like.
I would guess, that's the best guess I can give you.
At that point in time, we would have to probably just look and say, okay, we'll continue with our district commitment of that, on the 100,000 out of the silo for, and the backside, it won't be 10 years, is basically what it is.
Well, in order to get to the million it is,
Right, if we
because
don't need the million, that's where I think if we.
well, if you don't need the million, then that should come off of levying for the voted PEPAL.
Okay, that was kinda
Because
where
the taxpayers were told that the district was
Was
putting
gonna
forth
commit this
1.75 million.
Right,
And so I think the district is committed to that 1.75 million, at least that's my opinion.
that was kinda where I was going, where would we?
And so,
Credit
what will
back.
happen, and I looked a little bit at that this afternoon, is what will happen in probably years 7, 8, and 9, is rather than levying 67 cents a thousand,
Oh, okay.
you're probably gonna levy 56 cents a thousand. And I believe that, in year 10 of the PEPAL, won't have to levy anything,
Yeah.
because of
Okay.
what,
That's kinda- that's
way
what
the
I'm trying to
payments
get
are
at.
structured.
How that would
So
play
that's-
out.
That's where you'll have the ability to adjust that tax rate.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Very good, thank you.
How's construction coming? I mean, you see progress, obviously.
Well, work at night now, they got the lights out.
They're
Well-
contract concrete today when I was at the rec center.
I was told they'll probably be pouring concrete every day until the project's done.
Oh, really?
Right now, today, on the south end, they're pouring the sidewalk around them. To answer your question, they say on time, I know. I don't know, excuse me, a contractor to say they weren't on time. So, you take
No,
that with
but
a grain of
they're
salt.
not.
But they don't seem too excited, nervous is maybe a better word. Not as nervous as probably everybody else is. I'm not near as nervous as I was. Because when I'm asked questions anymore, my favorite 3 words are,
It won't be done. by
not
the
my
time I
problem.
leave. It won't be done by the time I leave.
Not my new phrase, not my problem. So, but no, I have confidence in them, that they'll get it done.
I mean, you work with
You
them,
know,
you're
the
talking
state,
to them.
yeah,
so
I
you
mean,
know as much about
fact,
them.
we have a construction meeting next Tuesday. We'll probably know more then. I would feel better as soon as they get the roofs on the buildings, and things of that nature, but,
There's
if
progress
every,
being
I would
laid,
tell you
obviously.
this, that is if everybody worked as hard as the Mason guys putting those buildings up, then you won't have to worry. Cause I've never seen a harder working group of guys that did that.
It's not easy work either.
It was like overnight, just
They
done.
busted their backsides, and
Did you wanna go over the line?
that has not been updated because, Diane wasn't here to get the reports to me. Payroll was done Friday, and so,
And then this orange sheet, that's the line item budget compared to where we are actually at. And you can see in the general fund, our revenues are at 85%, which is lagging a little bit behind, but it does every year. I just billed out open enrollment, we haven't billed out special ed tuition. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are still coming in revenues. The expenditure side is a little surprising, we're at 86.68, that's pretty darn good, it's a little better than I would expect. Activity fund, you can see we're both at, revenues 83%, but expenses at 84, so that's good. Management fund, it looks good. I mean, they all really look pretty good. You just can't look at debt service because obviously I screwed that up. I didn't account for the refunding project that we did, and so you can't really look at that one. But otherwise, yeah, I'm especially pleased with the expenditure side here. I think all of them are in really good shape. We should finish the year pretty good.
Questions? Next, we have some correspondence. Last day of school, June 1st, and is it a half day?
3 hour early dismissal.
3 hour early dismissal. Staff recognition is June 1st at 2:45 at Fairview East Gym, the new gym. Our next board meeting is June 18th, 5:30. Special board meeting, end of the year. I have a conflict with June 27th. Is that something that we can move?
Argue with Diane.
Okay.
Yeah, we can cross through.
I have a United Way board meeting that exact same time at noon that day.
And we could certainly move this one to earlier in the day if you wanted to, and you could move it to the next day. I asked Diane for a date, that's why I said fight with
Okay.
Diane, and so.
Do you have a trial
I
that
have
day?
a child that day, so.
27?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, it's just usually just.
We're just paying bills that day, so it's not that big a deal. We'll do something like that.
We only need 3,
Yeah.
and it probably won't take 10 minutes. So, if you have something, I wouldn't reschedule it, but we can certainly look at a different date too. I mean, we could have it at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning if you want to, doesn't matter. There are not too many people come to
No.
watch the end of the year bills.
Well, and even if we do it a little earlier, at 11, I'd be okay with that. It just, my meeting starts at noon, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Suggestions for next month's meeting, we have our annual improvement goals, Iowa assessment results, and we're gonna acknowledge Rob, even though he won't let us have a party, we're gonna acknowledge Rob for his service and have a little celebration of us here.
I'll be fine.
Anything else to add to that for next time? Can I get a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn?